Welcome back to the Integrateness Podcast with Jason and Jolene. I'm Jason, she's Jolene right there. And we're coming at you with our second to last episode of the season, that is.
And we're here to talk about... my stomach, does everyone else's stomach drop when we say that? Because that kind of sucks. I feel a little sad when I hear that. Second to last, and everyone's just holding on. But just I want more.
Just for like a few months. Like it's a season. So it gives people, like we said, it's a gift to our audience so they can actually go do stuff over the summer.
Yeah, because you guys are slaves to us, right?
Right.
Which actually brings us to today's topic of habits. Good habits, bad habits, ugly habits. What's your habit?
What makes a habit?
Yeah, and we are your habit, aren't we? Right?
Perfect.
Yes. Okay, so a habit, if we were to look at the definition of it, a settled or regular tendency or practice, especially one that is hard to give up.
Yeah.
That's us.
We are hard to give up. We almost debated not having a season even. Like just continuing. Speaking of habits.
Yes, okay.
You brought these Easter eggs over.
Yeah, so this is how today's topic came to be. I had to walk over to Jason's today because I was getting my tires swapped over. And when I left my house, I made a tea. That's a habit I make for myself. I usually have a tea before bed. We'll talk about different kind of healthy habits. That's like a nourishing habit. Whenever I make myself a tea, I make it with love to nourish myself. So I was like, I'm going to make a tea, head on over there. But yesterday I happened to score some like half price chocolate at the store. And I looked at this giant bag of these chocolates and I was like, oh, I can bring some of these right now. And I looked at my hand and I thought, I can only hold so many in my hand. And then I was like, oh, I'm going to wear my jacket. I got pockets. I can bring handfuls of chocolates now. So I brought handfuls of chocolate in my pockets. And there was way more before I got here, Jason.
I was going to say your pockets are small. It was only like 4 each.
Yeah, no. So I got halfway here and I was plowing through. You got to unwrap them too. So I actually wasn't able to eat them as quickly as the bag of mini eggs that are sitting in my desk drawer that I also bought. And I was like, this is my bad habit. Portion control stuff for sure is a weakness for me around sweets and things like that, right? So sweets are definitely a bad habit of mine, but not one bad enough that I want to eliminate it, but I have a really hard time managing and controlling it. So the only thing that helped me to manage that on the way here was I can either eat them all, but then I'm going to talk about this during the episode and Jason's going to be like, why the fuck didn't you bring any for me? So I had to stop eating them halfway so I had enough to share with him. And I think I only gave him 3, guys.
4. I got 4.
Okay.
4. It's funny because portioning's a bad habit of mine. At dinner, snack, and this gets harder, folks, as you get older. Like my metabolism when I was a kid, I could burn through anything, and that continued right into my 40s.
Oh, lucky!
Right into especially once I started boxing and all that stuff. But now in my 50s, not so much. But I'm still trying to eat like my metabolism is unstoppable, and that's really hard to dial that back. And I eat quickly. That's also been a bad habit of mine around food. I just eat. I don't know why. But you're just a bachelor, maybe? I don't know.
No, I know, actually. Okay. My mom actually brought awareness to this, and I see it play out in my kids a lot, too, is at school, you only have a certain amount of time to eat before they send you outside. And that's what it comes down to, is you really have to scarf your food fast. And I see my son do it all the time. You have to scarf it fast to get outside. So that, I think, was just a conditioned response that continued. Because I have the same issue. Eating really fast. And also thinking about, I completely lost my, do you know why? Because I'm looking around, I'm like, I swear I had one more fucking chocolate. Did I mindlessly eat that?
You did.
That's the other thing. It's like you can mindlessly, that's another thing. I'm not present while I eat a lot of the time. I make a point of during my lunch break to actually stop multitasking. Stop, even if it's just 10 minutes of just tending to my food and being present instead of responding to emails at the same time. Because you can actually overeat because of that. You're not enjoying the meal. There's no pleasure anymore. You're not actually taking it all in as an experience, right?
Watching a movie and eating popcorn. Not even paying attention to I've finished a large bag of popcorn at the movies before the end credits. Before the beginning credits.
That's impressive.
Literally, because you're watching the stupid ads and the previews and you just eat eating the popcorn, the movie starts, the beginning credits stop, and it's just like, I got like 2 hours now to sit.
How much ended up on your seat and the floor?
Everywhere, right? But I mean, I still ate a $20 bag of popcorn.
Is that how much it is now?
I'm exaggerating, but not by much.
Yeah, I told you last time the last movie I went to was Avatar, like long time ago. Avatar. Old Avatar. Yeah,
that's gotten pricier.
Yeah, okay.
Bad back then.
I think it was like $7 back then.
Yeah.
No, it was still dipping into my drinking budget. So we've got like bad habits around some of those things when we're specifically talking about like food or something like Jason and I are talking about. And then you can go and swap that. So when I actually went and joined the Herbal One company here, because I knew the gal running it, most of it was about being mindful of portion control, having a special system of like how to balance all of the different food types, proteins, carbs, fruit, and all of that, right? And then to be mindful and present. And that came down to writing it down, tracking it. Because then I actually had to keep track of what was going into my mouth, like that last fucking chocolate. I'm still looking around for it, guys. I really don't believe I ate it, but Jason's saying I did.
You did.
Yeah, rip off. So those are perfect examples of how we can take some of our, I'm going to say good and bad habits for lack of like, language confusion here. I really don't like the black and white of good and bad, but essentially, less desirable habits, and we can start to shift them and gain control over them and turn them into more positive habits that give us a better self-control, essentially, right? So like if we were to think of bad habits, I think of that Ed Sheeran song, right? Like, my bad habits lead to like late night texting and shit like that. What are I think that's what that song's about. Bad habits, reaching out to the wrong people at the wrong times. What are your bad habits, Jason?
Well, obviously eating too fast.
Yeah. You're so badass.
Right? I think like a lot of people, if I get on the computer, like I'm a procrastinator, a chronic procrastinator to get down to writing, because writing sucks, even though I do it for a living. So you kind of do everything, but it's a habit. You get in and you look at stuff, and then you go down the rabbit hole of like YouTube and all this other crap that is irrelevant. Right? And and then it pisses me off, and then I get to doing what I want to do. So yeah, procrastination. I mean, I like my 2 drinks a day. I don't think that's the healthiest of habits, but it's not an excessive amount. And then, like, I really like sugary stuff, like sugary drinks and everything, but it is really not good for you. Like a can of Pepsi's 56% sugar. I think it's got the most sugar.
Really?
Yeah, like it's really bad.
That's like all my dad lived off of was like coffee, cigarettes, and Pepsi.
Wow.
Isn't that wild?
Wow.
Yeah, so crazy.
I've found as I've gotten older, I've jettisoned a lot because it's just, they affect your health inversely.
Have you tried those Zevias? They are like natural sugar pops. So if I give my kids pop, I'll give them something like that.
Okay.
You could try a Soda Stream. I know it's not the same, but I mean, you could look at what is it? Like, do I like the carbonation? Do I like that feeling of the fizz up my nose?
It is. So I've done bubbly or whatever they call it, carbonated water drinks.
Yeah.
Those have been a good substitute as well. So like one of my bad habits, I used to smoke.
Yeah, me too.
That was a bad one.
Yeah.
Obviously. And it was hard to crack.
Yeah, well, because people don't quit smoking because they don't like it. They quit smoking because they have to.
Yeah, and that's literally it. I can still, that's why I still
Most people loved smoking.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
It was a Simpsons my son and I were watching that was a throwback to the 1930s, and it was a joke, but it wasn't far off. Kids are nervous in school, and they're like, here, kids, have a nice Laramie cigarette to calm your nerves. You know what I mean?
Right?
But that was the thought process about it.
Well, it was. And when we think about it, we're taking a deep breath, which is a way to calm the nervous system, right? To kind of activate that parasympathetic. But instead, we're like sucking in this crazy stimulant, but we've given ourselves this conditioned response that it'll calm us down, which it's actually doing the opposite in the body, which is fascinates me.
It riles it right up.
Because it's a stimulant. It's not actually a depressant, which is what you're needing when you're stressed out. But it's also, if you were to go back in Freud days, that is part of the oral stage fixation, right? Yeah. And when we were babies, we would suck and soothe to calm ourselves. Yeah. Or suck in the teat, whatever, right? But that was how you calmed, or you sucked your thumb, right? So really, if you were to look at it, like everyone who's smoking to soothe is essentially stuck in the oral stage and phase that Freud would talk about, psychology-wise. It is about self-soothing. So I always find it fascinating that physiologically smoking isn't actually calming the body, but the conditioned response, and if anyone remembers Pavlov's dogs around ding, 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 the bell, and them salivating for food because they associated the two, that's essentially what starts to happen. And actually, it's cool. We're talking about that right now because all of that is really important in understanding how to create habits, right? We really want to condition a certain response to a habit. So I talked about my sweets. And for me, sweets are like so linked to my childhood. We lived like right beside the corner store. My dad would send me down, I think with like $5 back then. I'd buy him a pack of cigarettes. Right? As like a 7-year-old. Fuck, days were awesome back then. I would buy him a pack of cigarettes and a Pepsi.
Yep.
And then he would tell me I could keep the change. So I would buy 5-cent candies, right? So for me, that was a fond memory of probably independence, helping my dad out, getting this special little task, and then rewarding myself, right? My dad also had candy stashes in the house. So that was also something that like was kind of like bonding time with him. Like I definitely have candy stashes in my house. My kids know this, right? And I was telling Jason that I like the candy stale. So I will purposely take the lids off of the candy, open the bags, put it into the freezer because that's how I like the candy.
We all have our thing.
Totally. It's
Right?
it's so weird, guys, but like that's where my bad habit comes from. There's always an origin of why it feels familiar. Otherwise, like the logical part of my brain would say, yeah, that much candy is probably not good for you, Jolene. Take 3 eggs on your way over to Jason's and you'll be okay. Right?
Not 25.
20. I think there was probably about 18.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So other bad habits, we talked about smoking,
Yeah.
For sure, social media stuff, like just digital era, right?
Digital anything.
Getting distracted. Like it's really hard to stay focused nowadays because we just live in such a fast-paced world, right? So I would say those are bad habits for me. Not being able to get to sleep at a decent hour. Like me staying up too late, that's a bad habit I've been very open about. Like it is just... So biologically I'm hijacked there, and then I would rather be in my own head and stay up than go to sleep most nights.
Well, and you know, it's funny about that because I'm a night owl anyways, like by nature as well. Stuck in a wake up in the morning world with, you know, a child that
me too.
6 o'clock, right?
Yes.
It's just the way it is. But my favorite time is like from about 10 p.m. on, partly because nobody's talking to me or bugging me. So it's quiet, right? Same thing. And like you say, you can be in your head or you can finally chill out, like you can read uninterrupted or watch a TV show.
Totally.
Just the act of being up late, I find very comforting.
Me too. That's
Right?
funny. And that for me started with kids. I really would like go to bed at like 9:30ish prior to that, wake up early, right? And then kids swap that around for me. But there are people who kind of do the opposite of that. And they're like, oh, I like to wake up at 3:30. Fuck. I'm like, I wake up at 3:30, but not intentionally. I wake up multiple times a night. But like 3:30, 4 o'clock, they'll work out. They'll have that quiet time. That's when they'll read. And yeah, just like for me, I would love to do that instead of stay up late. But then I don't know.
See, I've done that because I've done morning radio and been like a breakfast cook.
Right.
No.
Not your jam.
Not my jam. I do not want to get up before. Even like this a couple of weeks ago, after this aired, my ghost hunting colleague Peter and I had to be at a location at 7:30 a.m. It was like an hour drive. Do the math of when we were getting up to go there. And Pete gets up every day at 4 or 5.
Right. Yeah. Right? Oh, he's one of those guys.
He's a morning guy. I guess from back in his, again, it's like a habit from his days in London. In order to get to the job site on time, he had to get up super early to beat the traffic, and then he'd have breakfast and be at work and get started. So he's just continued to do that. But for me, who would just rather not, that was brutal. Not as brutal as getting up at 3 a.m. to be at the radio station for 4 a.m. to do 2 hours of prep before the 6 a.m. broadcast.
Yeah.
But
there you go.
Sucky.
So good habits, bad habits, shifting habits, being forced into certain habits, right? You were forced into that one, whether you liked it or not, right? I was forced into mine, whether I liked it or not, of staying up late, right? And then you kind of like learn to hug that a little bit if you don't feel like you have as much flexibility around changing it. So that would be me with the nighttime piece, right? So, you know, if we think about other habits, what are positive habits that you intentionally look at creating? Because again, these are things that like make it hard to give up. So you guys have been listening to us. If you've created a habit out of Tuesdays or whenever you listen to us, that's a positive habit there, right? For me, I made a habit of self-care, spending time alone, journaling, meditating, all of those things. And I wanted to cultivate something that I liked so much and saw so much reward from that I didn't didn't want anything to steal it away. And that's actually what I work with my clients a lot. And in my workshop that I created, I'm like, I want you to love this so much that nothing's going to fucking take it from you. And you will boundary everything to keep it in place. Make sense?
Oh, yeah, no. And those are the, like, I know for myself, it's like first thing in the morning when I get up, I have a little exercise regime. It takes about 10 to 15 minutes just to wake up the body. It's like some stretches, shadow boxing, stuff like push-ups, stuff like that.
Oh, I thought you meant like a different wake-up routine to exercise the body.
Exercise the body. No, yeah, if only.
It's okay if that's yours, you guys. That's a great way to start the day.
Get that tension out. And then journaling every day. Mm-hmm. Like at night, usually I do my journaling, meditating. You know, it's either in the morning or kind of mid-afternoon. And then, like, I read every day. Even if it's only for, like, 15, 20 minutes. You know what I mean? I read every day. Usually at the end of my workday. Because it's a good way to clear the brain after doing some meditation.
Yeah, so that's like, there's a lot of healthy morning routines out there. I feel like Tony Robbins or somebody kind of really maximizes on that, like the 5 minutes of meditation, 5 pages out of your journal, like different things like that. So some people really anchor into those things. And for some people, I think I think for all of us, there is a nice balance of having some rigid habits that occur usually at the same time for the same rate at the same day. And then some that need to be flexible. So for me, my nighttime routine can consist of a few different things, and I will ebb and flow. And some days I'll feel something and other days I won't. So I'll still tend to something, 15 minutes before bed in terms of like, I usually always journal. I usually always do like a gratitude. Sometimes I'll do a mind dump journaling, but then other times I might just sit and read like 5 minutes out of a book. So like right now I have a poetry book that I'll sit down and I'll read a few of those poems. And other times I might choose to do more of a meditation that's going to prepare me for bed or something. But usually I will always do one of those. And I just don't know what that is until that day because that's just what works for me.
And that's a good thing to do. Have a bit of flexibility with it as long as you're kind of doing something.
Otherwise, I'd get bored. I know that about myself. Yeah, I would get bored and I'd just say, oh, fuck it. But this way, if I say fuck it to the one thing, then I'm more likely to be like, but I'll do this one instead.
Yeah, which is good to have that in. It's like as writers, writing is more of a habit muscle than anything else. And there's always people that have theories that, they write, some writers just be like, I write 5 pages a day. Mm-hmm. I write 1,000 words a day. But even just to get something out every day, to sit and even write for 10 minutes, just get something down that keeps that muscle going, right? Because there's like anything you have good periods of writing and bad periods of writing.
Yeah.
Right? Writer's block, etc.
Yeah, totally. Actually, I did. I took like this brief 1 week how to write a book course through Hay House kind of thing. It was free and I took it. And that was a big piece. It was getting into the habit of writing, regardless of how much or what, just get in the habit of writing. And that's why journal prompts are really helpful, right? If you just have some basic journal prompts that you can go to where you don't have to think about what to write, you just run with whatever's there, right? Yeah. What are some other healthy habits?
Healthy habits?
Yeah.
Going for a walk every day.
Nice.
That's a good one. Dietary healthy habits, right? Which is tough. But you should still eat better than worse. You know what I mean? And it's funny, we were talking before about the 21 days to make a habit.
Yes. 3
days to break it. And I mean, I had a good run with all my habits until we went to Vancouver a few weeks back. And it was like, whoop. The whole thing fell tumbling down. It took days to get back into the right
Totally. Yeah. So that's actually like a psychology of, again, conditioning and creating like cause and effects through those things. So 21 days, that's 3 weeks, 3 weeks consistent to create a habit. And most people who are thinking about like exercise regimes and things like that, like there was like the 21-day fix, that Beachbody program people might remember, right?
Yeah.
Bingo. There's a psychology behind all of it, right? It only takes 3 days, one long weekend, guys. How many fucking long weekends are there, right? Or like all of a sudden something gets in the way of that. Like spring break really screwed up my ability to like, even I have work habits. I have things I do on Mondays when I start my week. There's, if I lose that Monday, like this last Easter Monday, I feel kind of messed up for the week in terms of some of my planning and my business flow. Things get interrupted and it feels out of sync. I love Mondays because it's like, okay, weekend is done, roll into the week, here's what's coming. And I didn't get that Monday. I just like dove into Tuesday, right?
Oh, it always throws people. The Tuesday feels kind of like a Monday, but it's not a Monday.
In disguise.
Tuesday. Yeah, right?
I know.
And everything's just fucked. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then when you have 2 4-day weeks like that,
yeah,
right after a 2-week break,
Wild, right? Yeah. So other healthy habits, go back and listen to some of our episodes if you are like, oh yeah, I got to consider that. Discipline, mental discipline, right? So making a point of like calling myself out on the moments I give myself permission to put 18 fucking chocolates in my pocket. Call myself out like I did. I had a conversation the whole way over as I was mowing down, right? I was like, thankfully there's tinfoil on them. Otherwise they'd all be gone. And being like, was that necessary?
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
No, it wasn't necessary, but it was possible because there's a whole bag of them there. Right? If there was only 18, I would have only taken half because I would have wanted some more later.
That's right.
Right? So it's again, like, how do you justify this? And people, like, we do this a lot in substance use work, is like how people will justify the next drink, justify the cigarettes, justify whatever it is, right? And it's like, what are you considering moderation? Where do you like give yourself kudos for holding back there, So I used to work with this one lady. It was so funny. She loved sweets and stuff as well. So people would bring things to the lunchroom and she would always cut things in half. So get this, let's say you've got like a tray of baking there. Let's say she just cut it in half and she took half. And then she'd come back into the lunchroom a little later and she'd cut that half in half. And then she'd cut the next half in half. And then she'd cut the next half in half. And then she'd eat the whole thing. She wouldn't eat the whole tray of baking, but that's how she would approach those things. She'd end up eating all of it anyways, but it felt better for her when she cut it in half. And it was like her classic move, right?
Right. Well, I only ate half.
Yeah, she would.
The other half.
And that was a means of justifying that it was okay because honestly, it was like, yeah, there's no way I would eat that. This happens at Halloween time. And again, why is it always around food here, right? Probably because food is a necessity in our life, so we can't actually cut it out. But it is around regulation and self-control and those kinds of things. And indulgence. It's this like delicate balance with pleasure and stuff too, right? But yeah, like we will notice this. Like I can't remember the last time I ate a full-size chocolate bar.
Oh yeah, same.
Right? Because, that's too much. Or like a full-size donut. But I will plow those Timbits or those little mini chocolate bars at Halloween like no other. And I pretty much...
the equivalent of like 8.
Fuck.
Right?
Right?
Yeah, or the whole box of a dozen donuts, but they were Timbit size, so that's okay.
It's so wild. That's the same concept of cutting it in half and whatever, right? So, really think about that and where we give ourselves permission to cut corners, right? Oh, it's okay. I'll just this or I'll just that, right?
I'll have a diet soda after my cheeseburger fries with gravy.
Right? And for a lot of people, it's like, I've already had all this. I may as well just let her rip, right?
Okay, here we go.
Mm-hmm. So, think about that and go back to the discipline episode and listen to some of the key messages in there because it is around discipline is the ultimate form of self-love, right? Yeah. So that is where those healthy habits start to come in. And, what is it about that habit that is so controlling? It is. It essentially has us by the balls, right?
Yeah, well, because they talk about that in Stoicism because a big part of Stoicism is moderation, or they call it temperance, and it's just denying yourself pleasure now because you can enjoy it later, and if you enjoy it in moderation, there's always some to enjoy.
Yeah.
Whereas when you overdo it, you quite often, think of all the times that you drank so much as a kid or a teenager, and then you just couldn't do it. Mm-hmm. But if you kind of moderate, you don't feel bad. You're healthier.
Or as an adult.
Yeah,
and we're not built for that anymore.
We aren't built for that, but we still do it. But the point is moderation is always better than indulgence.
Right, yeah.
And that's just a big thing to remind yourself of when dealing with your bad habits and even good habits, right?
And I also think, when we were to look at that, we restrict ourselves in so many areas. We have rules around so many things, right? And even when we're talking about portion control and this and the things you should and shouldn't eat, sometimes when we ease up, you could look at this around drug use, right? And countries that have, legalized drug use and, criminalized. And then what that is around the whole, don't touch that. Don't use this. Don't look over there. And we're tempted from now instantly we want to do that, right? Yeah. We're not allowed. There's that factor to it, right? So sometimes it is about when we restrict so much, then we have these massive binge opportunities. Whereas if we allowed ourselves to freely have it, and that's more along the lines of intuitive eating guidelines and things like that. If you truly allow yourself what you feel like you need and deserve, honestly, not 18 fucking chocolates. Okay. then you don't feel the need to have 18 chocolates or to indulge in that many, drinks or this or that, right? But we do. We have this elastic band where we just like slingshot across to that like extreme, hey?
Well, there was no binge watching until Netflix came along.
Oh my God, there's fucking commercials. There was things like you watched what you watched was on TV, and if you didn't like it,
it was on and then it was off, and then on summer there was no new episodes. They were reruns while they filmed some more. But you didn't care.
Yeah.
Now it's like you watch, all 10 episodes of The Night Agent, and you're like, well, fuck, now what?
Yeah.
Right? Not that I've done that.
I was like, what show?
It's good.
we know I'm not the TV gal here, right? But it's all those kinds of things. So some healthy habits, I would start to do, and I even saw myself struggle with this over winter. I started using my sauna again. So actually it was funny, me and one of my friends, I saw he had gotten a sauna. I was like, all right, let's have a challenge. So we were like all gung-ho for the first little bit. And then I was like keeping track, and then we were going to try and get to 30. And then I was like, fuck, where are we at now? Like 17. Why does that feel like it's taking so long? And then it's like, I don't ever think we ever checked in around it again, right? But sometimes it's just whatever you need to get you into something. And like, maybe I just don't need that right now, or I don't have space or time for it right now, So what have I replaced that with? There's just different things that maybe I've replaced with that. One healthy habit I have all the time, my bubble baths. That's totally like my jam, my thing. Again, like, regularly getting outside, things like that. Business habits. Like, when we think about like habit stacking, a lot of entrepreneurs talk about this. Mm-hmm. I feel like, back when I was looking at people like Jimmy Buffett, things like that, there is a lot of language around like what are your top habits? What are the things that you're consistently doing, kind of like we were talking about from that writing perspective. And here's the thing, like, how invested are you in creating healthy habits? The minute it comes to money, the minute it comes to business, the minute it comes to fame, we're like, fuck yeah. But if it's to do with us, we might not prioritize it as much,
like
unless
your health is compromised in favor of fame and wealth and all that other stuff, right?
But it usually takes us some kind of wake up call or an injury or a health concern or something to like start focusing on that. Yeah. But people are so willing to do it for like the money and fame and all those things, right? So I can think about business habits I have. Every time I flip to my day timer, every week I've got new goals. I sit down and look at what I want that week to look like. Every month I sit down and set intentions around what I'm bringing in, what I want to focus on, when I want to launch something, whether I want to open my caseload or what that's looking like, or, where I'm balancing everything with my work life. So I'm very intentionally habitual around a lot of those rituals and practices, right? And then going back and double checking results in my spreadsheets of, finances and things like that.
Well, that's basically what a routine is. It's a habit.
Yeah.
That you've built.
Yep. So, for all of you guys, think about those bad habits.
And the good ones.
And
let us know about them in the comments of this episode.
Yeah. And understand, like, take some time to understand. Don't just accept that you have them. Understand why they are there and if they're serving you or not. And even if they're not serving you, are they harming you? If they're harming you, what can you do about that? But if they're not harming you, then like, cool, where are you going to let that sit? Where are you going to let that hang?
You balance that, eating of 18 chocolate eggs by still doing, a running every day.
I walked over here.
I'm saying, that's what I mean.
Right? I had Pilates this morning. I walked over here.
You earned those 18 chocolates.
I did, but then I also could have done without them because I was like, here's the thing. This is where things stack. Back in February, remember I liked cheesecake? Well, It was my birthday, and then like it was my girls' birthdays, and there was a lot of cake around that time. And then that just rolled in. And even in this last like couple weeks, went to the Chili Peppers concert. So I was eating out that week, like for a day. And then I went out again that weekend, and I don't eat out. So that's like rare for me. And I was like, oh, I had all these blobs of things, and now I'm a blob because I think I gained like 7 pounds in 2 weeks, guys. And I was like, I could see this. This started back with that fucking cheesecake on my birthday. I know it did, right? So it is around. I could have done without the 18 chocolates because I'm actually already in the red, right? I was already in the negative. So it wasn't balancing out the walk. I needed the walk and no chocolates.
See what a complex web this is.
I'm being honest with myself, guys. So that is literally that top-down approach of like why I'm doing what I'm doing and if I got the result I got, right?
All right. There you go, folks. Well, we've got one more.
We do.
One more episode in season 1 coming up next week. And we guarantee you it'll be your new favorite episode.
Right.
So until then, I'm Jason.
I'm Jolene.
Talk next week.